Good evening and welcome to Legal Tech Live, episode 48. I'm Nick Rishwain and I'm here with my co-host,
Ivan Rakelin.
Excellent. And our guest today.
Wait, hold up.
What?
I got to introduce real quick. Reporting live from Northern Virginia, not Washington, D.C., as you said before the show started.
Yeah, it's close enough. It's close enough. In our guest, that's true. You have a commitment to Virginia. I forgot. Our guest tonight is Brian Mache. Brian brings us back probably about 25 episodes ago. We had a law student on, law students at that time, and that company has gone, I think they have split into two companies, but every once in a while we like to get back to those innovative and entrepreneurial law students and what they're doing with legal tech. Brian is a 3L at Vanderbilt, where he focuses on the intersection of law, technology, and business. He is the president of the school's Legal Technology Society. Prior to law school, Brian spent several years in financial operations at a global money transfer company, Zoom Corporation, who was later bought out by PayPal. Throughout law school, he has stayed involved with fintech, so we might have a little bit of crossover here, advising the company Leaf, a social enterprise committed to developing tools to encourage financial inclusion of refugees in East Africa on regulatory, compliance, and banking issues. Brian graduates in May 2019 and plans to continue his work in the field of cybersecurity and data privacy compliance. Brian comes highly recommended from a friend from Twitter, Cap Moon, one of his professors.
From Twitterati.
The Twitterati have recommended you. Brian, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So, Brian, give us a little bit of your personal history while I push us live to Facebook.
All right. Thanks for having me. So like you kind of mentioned, I worked a little bit before going to law school. I did a year, a little less than a year at Ernst & Young in audit, decided I did not want to be an accountant or an auditor, and moved out to San Francisco and worked at a money transfer company called Zoom that you mentioned. So there we were helping immigrants to the United States send money to friends and family abroad. My role was in treasury, working with the currency trading operations and the global banking empire that we had kind of built by the time that we sold it. We paid out to almost 50 countries at that time, and we're doing upwards of 10 billion a year in transfers. So it was a busy time.
Busy time, and fintech or banking and finance is compliance heavy, correct?
Correct. And that's kind of what drove me to law school was I gravitated towards a lot of the compliance aspects of my role in foreign banking and, opening and closing foreign banking accounts. There's all sorts of regulation as a US-based company dealing with foreign banking laws and what's the law in Vietnam regarding foreign companies, currency trading and whatnot. So a lot of those questions I found interesting were legal and regulatory in nature. And that kind of made me realize that a lot of the costs in financial services are due to regulation, not necessarily the cost of providing the services. So I think, it's kind of the final frontier on tech disruption are the heavily regulated industries. You can't pull the Uber and Airbnb model and just open up a bank or a hospital and wait until they change the regulations. You kind of have to play by the rules there. So that's kind of what drew me to law school.
That makes sense.
Hey, so I need to ask, when did you guys get bought out by PayPal?
Zoom was bought in November. It was closed November 2015, I believe. Yeah, 2015 is when PayPal closed. So PayPal announced the acquisition of Zoom right before they were split off from eBay, and then we closed around November. So they split off in July. I think they announced the split off from eBay, and then November we closed.
Excellent. And then and you went to law school then thereafter.
Right. So the fall of 2016. So I stayed until the fall and worked on some of the integration projects with PayPal and whatnot, and then went to law school there in the fall.
Yeah, excellent. And how long while you were at law school before you started dipping your toes into legal technology?
Almost immediately. It was just kind of the natural, I kind of saw going into regulation with fintech, but then, after law school was kind of my plan. But as soon as I got there, seeing just how antiquated the legal world is in terms of technology and tools, and I just got really into a lot of that stuff, which kind of drew me into MyZappeals here, the insurance idea. I mean, there's just so much opportunity in the legal services market. There's that statistic. I think they say 80 or 85% of people who need legal services do not get them. So I really saw a big opportunity to kind of leverage my consumer-oriented startup experience into the legal world, because it's kind of this antiquated, almost bizarre world of services, and so the next frontier of legal services will absolutely be consumerization of them.
It seems to be going that way. Some of the most exciting ones that I've worked with, talked to, and so forth seem to be legal to consumer based. That seems to be the most exciting stuff, because you try and just sideswipe or sideline that long sales cycle of working or selling to law firms, and just maybe you go straight to consumers and use that as lead generation into law firms. So I really like that. I think it's exciting, and I think it's probably past time. We seem to be having similar issues to what we had last time, Ivan, posting to Facebook. So I'm going to drop the link to this over in Facebook.
All right. It's a little shadow banning again. I get it.
You may try to do the live stream, Ivan, from yours. I will give you.
Let me try it.
Let me give you host, and then you have to go directly into Legal Tech Group. Now, I tested this yesterday and it worked fine. So, Brian, I apologize for this. We are still recording naturally. And Brian, so tell us, I know you're real early on, and we've done this with law students in the past. And so you've got an MVP, I think, and give us what's your rundown of your solution, your legal technology that you're offering.
Absolutely. The idea is kind of sparked by some medical bills that I had shortly before coming to law school. It's a pain in the ass, pardon my French here, to process medical expenses, even through medical insurance. I had great health insurance through a California-based PayPal. It was fantastic insurance, but the actual processing of it sucked. And, there were all these claims would get submitted and then kicked back. And, I looked into it a little bit. With a specific issue was a helicopter ambulance bill that was just fully denied, and it denied twice in the reappeal. And, from my understanding, I wasn't a law student yet then, but the plan kind of talked about the way the plan read to me as a non-even law student yet should have been covered at the billed amount, meaning whatever this person sent the bill as.
Right.
And finally, on the last appeal, I wrote a letter, based on my research and everything like that. And all of a sudden they come back and they say, oh, they'll pay the whole thing. And my case man, the ambulance company that was just threatening to sue me is now saying that they've never seen an actual check for the 100% of the billed amount. So now the case manager there is my best friend all of a sudden. But this is a one-page letter written by a non-lawyer, so it can't be that hard. But at the same time, I was a little bit more sophisticated than a lot of the people out there dealing with this. So that experience kind of stuck with me in my head. And as I was going through a lot of stuff over the past few years with different startups, different technologies, it kept coming back to, AI would be a great way of dealing with this. These are pretty much form letters.
Yep.
These aren't, they're not that, there's some level of complexity to the variability of the content, but they're at the end of the day, complex form letters. So, there's got to be a way. If this letter worked for me and it was, a $45,000 letter, essentially, I was about to be sued for $45,000 from a helicopter company. And beyond that, there has to be a better way.
Right.
So we started playing around with that.
I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off there, but we're getting some static, some feedback from your I think it's your wireless headset there. Might be when it's touching the collar of your shirt.
See if I can.
That might be the cause of that.
Is that a little better?
Yeah, let's see see how that works. So anyway, tell us then about, so you got this big healthcare bill, which, right, that we've all received the bill from our insurance or from the provider that says, we know that it's a template, and some of them can be quite frightening, especially when it's not coming from your insurance. So your idea, can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So Ivan, looks like we're good on your end. You are streaming us live into Facebook. Thank you for that.
That is correct.
Excellent. So you get this bill and you think there's got to be a way to address this form letter and contest this bill.
Yeah, correct. And so, the initial started playing around with the idea with some friends in the law school community and just around the Vanderbilt campus in general. And, the first problem we started thinking about was, how do we get information in? We decided to kind of focus on ambulance and ER bills in the beginning because there's a special provision of the Affordable Care Act that guarantees that out-of-network bills are supposed to be paid at an in-network rate if it's an emergency, if it's a medical emergency. So, they don't expect you basically to call up every hospital nearby on vacation to make sure you go to one that's in your network. If it's a medical emergency that the average layperson would think that is the prudent layperson would find a medical emergency, then your insurance company should be paying that as the in-network rate, which balanced billing is another concept that people talk about a lot. It's a little bit complex, but it basically means that whatever the insurance company doesn't pay, the hospital or provider can come back to you for. So
Right.
If your bill's $1,000 and your insurance company pays $800, you owe that $200. Right. So the idea is for these out-of-network players, we want to drive up the reimbursement levels to drive down the patient bills. That's the whole idea here, is increasing what the insurance company pays to decrease the bills to the patients. So we started, like I said, with the ambulance and ER bills. We've won a few pitch competitions on that model. We're going to the final round of the SOAR Grant $25,000 pitch competition next week. We'll be at Jim Soar is an investor in Nashville that runs us the Vanderbilt Business School. So that's exciting. And so we've started looking at our models now shifted a bit. The tool's great and we're developing that MVP, but we're now moving the model a little bit to kind of identify kind of who's our customer. And we've moved from thinking, it's direct to consumer, which is, attractive because it's so empowering. But now we've started talking with providers a little bit to kind of serve the role of a very early stage collections agency in a way where we can provide a tool. So providers don't usually have a lot of good answers to their patients when they call up upset about these bills. So we're hoping to have a tool that providers can point to and say, hey, these guys can help you deal with your insurance company. And then B, once the insurance appeals process is exhausted, we can be there to help facilitate payment, whether it's different payment plans or different financing options that you can bring in. So it's a two-pronged approach. The first plan of attack is getting every penny you can out of the insurance company. And then B is collecting what's left from the patient by hopefully being on their side too. We don't want it to be, we don't want providers to be in a fight with their patients over money. We're hoping to turn it into more of a collaborative process. And the administration costs around collecting healthcare bills are very high. So we're hoping to kind of reduce that as well. If we can get more money out of the insurance company and streamline the process of paying bills, hopefully drive down these costs and drive down these bills.
Okay. All right.
So when is this pitch competition coming up and where is it?
April 9th, Tuesday. It's a closed door roundtable with Jim Soar, unfortunately.
Okay.
So it's not open to the public, but we had the public round was 2 or 3 weeks ago at Vanderbilt. So we're looking at our calendar now for future pitch competitions. So anyone watching out there, we're ready and willing to travel. So looking.
Excellent. So give us, do you have like the elevator pitch for, because we're now live on Facebook, we've got Alan Rodriguez and Zohar Fisher. So can you give them like they're watching now, can you give them like the 30-second pitch that they may have missed there on what your tool does and who it serves?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you get these confusing eye medical bills, what our tool does is it has a chat bot that triages you, basically asks you a bunch of questions. What's going on? What are these bills? It decides which questions to ask based on the answers to previous questions. And then it takes that information and generates letters for you to send to your insurance company to appeal them. So instead of just filling out a form or clicking things, it's an AI bot through Google. Google has been kind enough to accept us into their Google Cloud for Startups program. So they've given us $100,000 in credits to Google Cloud, and their AI called Dialogflow is their chatbot tool. So this chatbot talks to you a little bit, kind of figures out what's going on, gets the details, and then runs through and assembles a PDF kind of form for you to mail into your insurance company that gives you the power of a lawyer without the bill.
Excellent. And so, and our guest tonight is Brian Mache. He is, Alan, thanks for joining. He is a Vanderbilt law student, 3L, and he comes from I found Brian through our friend Kat Moon. So, Alan, if you have any questions, let me know. Looks like we have Guy DiMartino, who has joined us over on Zoom. Hi, Guy. Thanks for joining. Guy is a Indiana and Florida-based lawyer, so he's interested in tech stuff as well. Brian, what will the cost be for this? First of all, do you have a name for the product yet?
So it's called MyZappeals. So MyZappeals.com. The website should be launching in the next couple of days here over the weekend, hopefully. So cost structure, that's what kind of drove us to the B2B model a little bit, to working with providers, because, how do you value something like this? I don't mean to go to a consumer and sit there and say, we saved you $10,000. You owe us 20% of that now. That kind of model just isn't where we wanted to be. So on a collection, kind of looking at the early stage collections models, what made a little bit of sense for us on the providers. So for the incremental volume that we bring to providers, so if we take their original reimbursement of insurance and improve it by $1,000, we're going to take a cut of that improvement from the providers themselves. So that's in comparison to bad debt collection agencies would be the other, option is down the road. They might sell it off for pennies or tens of cents on the dollar. Mm-hmm. So we're hoping to be a little bit closer there and bring in better income to the providers.
Okay. And so you said it would be business to business.
Yeah, so it's a little bit in between, because we see that we're going to be linking up with providers to be able to help them support all their patients when they get bills. So whether it's and we're kind of playing around with different approaches, whether it's ambulance companies, whether it's hospitals. So we're looking for different areas, and a lot of our market research right now is going around different segments. We really think with small providers that don't have the luxury of giant administrative departments from that big hospitals have. We're really interested in tools like this because it helps them improve their collections rate without having to sell out to some big hospital system. Okay. And they're doing a lot of this administrative work themselves or with small teams that are overwhelmed. So this is a tool to amplify their effectiveness.
All right. So since we've got Guy in the room here, if he's still with us, he does a lot of personal injury and related work. And I'm wondering, I think a lot of times I hear the stories from my practicing lawyer friends about, the bills keep mounting up for the personal injury attorney, or not for the personal injury attorney, the plaintiff or the victim. And the bills keep mounting up, and they're contacting their attorney. They're worried about all these bills mounting up. Have you found a way to maybe work with attorneys as far as those who are servicing those who've been, in your experience, after some sort of an accident, and the bills are now mounting up, and give them this option as a way to kind of deal with and appeal some of those bills while they're going through? And Guy, correct me if maybe it's not something you want them to do if there's a fault involved. Maybe you don't want them appealing some of the bills while litigation is pending. But have you thought about incorporating the legal community in this more, rather than the providers and ambulance companies?
That's an interesting question. I think that's something to explore on the personal injury side. Like you mentioned, I'm not sure kind of offhand what the incentives are there, and who the parties are. But we have spoken with, there's an attorney that's kind of helping advise us, and he won a $25 million verdict against Aetna in Arkansas. I'm not sure if, or no, it was Nebraska, I think. And they, $25 million verdict against Aetna because they denied claims that they should have been approving. Someone died because they were denied cancer treatment that should have been approved by their plan. The widow sued Aetna. It was bad faith denials of claims. So we have spoken with a few attorneys in the bad faith claim denials litigation aspect.
Okay.
So this would be non-ERISA plans. ERISA is kind of what most health insurance plans are. But that basically means it's either from your employer or a lot of other things. But for people that are in the private marketplace insurance plans, there are some protections and some options. There are a lot more things that you can sue for. So we've spoken about referring out non-ERISA cases.
Okay. All right. Interesting. And that kind of came from Alan Rodriguez over in the Facebook side of things. He had asked what the application was in law. And I said it's essentially a debtor-creditor situation here that you're trying to solve, but with healthcare specific.
I would say it's a contract enforcement issue here because the way we see it is you pay every month your health insurance premiums, right? You're doing what you're supposed to. What's happening here is that health insurance companies are trying to get out of their end of the contract when it comes time to pay the bill. So they're more than happy to take your money every month. But then, for instance, my plan, with the cancer plan that Doug Terry litigated, these treatments were pretty clearly included in the plans here. And so the fact that they're denying once, twice, hoping that you go away, that's them trying to get out of their contractual obligation. And because you're the little guy, you're the guy that's paying a little bit every month, and they're the big insurance company. So they're trying to just kind of get out of what they owe. And this is, so you're right, it's framing as a debtor to creditor, but I think in this aspect, the insurance company is the debtor because you are prepaying every month your obligations, and they're trying to get out of it. So that's kind of the way we're looking at it.
Brian, just one more thing. Is your mic on the right-hand side of your headphones?
It's right here.
Yeah. So I think it's rubbing against your face, and I think that's what's giving us the...
then I moved it the wrong direction. Yeah.
That's okay. That's all right. So how will you, once you launch, and we'll look forward to seeing it's MyZappeals.com will be the website that launches?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How will you monetize?
So that's what we're looking at with the providers, is going through a percentage of the extra money we get. If, like I said, if the insurance company ends up paying an extra couple thousand because of our letters, maybe we take, a cut of that. And that's what we're still talking with providers on what's an appropriate percentage. But that, we have toyed around with a few models of going straight to consumers, and, maybe they pay $20 a month to have access to if they have a chronic condition or something, maybe they pay $20 a month, and we're an extra tool for insurance cost administration. And then the providers have said that they would be willing to give up a cut of extra revenue that comes through us. So those are kind of the two main angles. I don't like the idea of doing a percentage directly from the patients because, that's cash that they don't have. So taking a cut of actual increases from providers or a flat fee to patients. The other angle of this is people that manage chronic conditions. If you've got a chronic health condition and you're seeing doctors every month, running lab tests every month, this is probably something that you're familiar with on a daily or weekly basis. Is dealing with these bills. So, and everyone out there that tries to give you a portal, is the health insurance company, is your doctor, they all want something else, is your money. They're not, no one's really fighting for you. So making it a patient-oriented kind of portal is what we're looking at here. Tracking a lot of this can get complex very fast. Even with one hospital visit, you're going to have 5 or more different claims. So it can get very confusing. So deciphering this, giving you the power of a lawyer in your computer or your pocket for the patients is kind of what we're looking at.
Excellent. Ivan, what's brewing up there in that noggin? Are you muted? You're muted.
I was just checking to see if you were paying attention. So, no, I wanted to ask. First question is, who's on your team right now? Is it just you getting this together, or
Right now, yeah, I'm the founder. I'm working with, I've got advisors all over the spectrum. So I'm looking at looking for a technical co-founder is probably what would be the next step in terms of a co-founder. But I'm mildly technical, so I'm covering it for now. I'm working with a couple of law students here at Vanderbilt that are helping kind of map the language for letters and the flow of the legal transactions. I've got one of our advisors, Tori Sample, is I've worked with her on Leaf, and she comes from HCA and data architecture. So she's used to large healthcare data sets. So it's, just a lot of people around here in town that we've kind of assembled. I probably 5 or 6 formal advisors on that side, and then myself as the founder right now. We're at the pre-seed stage. This is all bootstrapped right now.
Right.
Throwing together that $100,000 from Google Cloud, competing in the last round for this $25,000 from Jim Soar. That's kind of what we're getting this last bit of momentum together here, and then we're going to kind of go out and look for a capital raise on the seed stage, to kind of help us bring in more help.
And let me remind
that going into an accelerator, or
Yeah, we're completely open to that. So that's kind of what I'm, finishing up law school here and deciding, over the past month or so is when I kind of decided to go into this full time. So that's kind of where we're at now, is looking at all the applications for other pitch competitions, for other incubators, and kind of getting that all organized.
And which ones have you actually looked at so far?
We were looking at, the InsurTech on the West Coast. I forget the name of it. It's coming up here in April. So we missed the deadline for that one. So we're looking here in the fall, putting our calendar together. We'd be happy for any suggestions any of the listeners have here, anything that they kind of advocate for.
Excellent. 1 second on that thought, Brian. We've got 2 thoughts one idea from Alan. But Morris has asked me, he's watching in Facebook Live, and he'd asked me to recap this because he came in late, which, normally I'd give him a hard time for that, but I'm going to go ahead and recap it. Morris, Brian Mache is a law student, a 3L at Vanderbilt Vanderbilt Law, and he has created a chatbot essentially that will help patients, although this may be provider-based, to begin.
Well, the patients will be the ones that are actually completing the product. So it'd be a kind of referral through provider. But go ahead. Sorry.
Referral through provider. Okay. To help patients to deal with these issues with healthcare bills and appealing when you've got a bill that's not, when something isn't covered, and kind of helping them through that process. Brian, you want to add anything to my short and not so eloquent recap?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, it's a chatbot here that kind of serves the role of a patient advocate. So it talks to you, gets the information about your claims, and generates appeal documents that exercise your rights under your health insurance plan, federal law, and state law. So whatever rights you have, consumer protection rights in the health insurance claims arena, our chatbot helps get the information from you and crafts the appeal letters.
Perfect. Thank you. That was much better than what I had. And Alan Rodriguez has a good idea. He says providers can use the product as a value add service to their patients, and I think that's a great idea if the providers will offer it to patients. It sounds like one of the things you had in mind.
Yep, that's exactly how we're hoping to position it. If when we go the B2B provider route, right now we want to change the relationship between providers and patients from one that they, can be kind of adversarial when you get this guy's bill at the end of the month or, whatever it is, to kind of being more of a team player. So let's work together against your insurance company. So it really is patients and providers together against these insurance companies. So bringing 2 parties together and making it a productive relationship.
Excellent. And Mo says he's based in Huntsville, Brian, and he's headed to Nashville tomorrow. So stop by for the website launch, Mo. And Ivan, I'm sorry, I kind of cut you off there because I wanted to recap. So please take over.
Yeah, I just want to talk about essentially in the next 6 weeks, you're going to wrap up law school, right? Mid-May.
Yes, sir.
Ceremony is what, July probably?
It's May 10th.
May 10th, and then you'll study for the bar in July, pass it, or are you?
I'm considering taking the February bar. I have not signed up for the July bar yet.
Okay.
My goal is to kind of give this full time right now.
And then that leads to the next question. So what's the timeline from now until, I guess, launch?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now the goal is to finish up a lot of this early market research and kind of tweak out our MVP a little bit, and then go out there over the next 1 to 2 months and look for seed money. We're looking for around 250,000 of seed money, and then that would be probably put us out hopefully a Q3 launch for the product directly. The first product is probably going to go direct to patients. Maybe through providers. We're still deciding that, but we're hoping to have a early product out there Q3.
Okay. So then since you've been doing your research, have you identified anybody that's already in this space?
You know, they're not in this space in the health insurance aspect. We're seeing it. You've probably read about these guys that do it for like parking tickets, say. You know, you can go, these apps will help you appeal parking tickets. We're looking at different competitors like that are not in the healthcare space. And then in the healthcare space, there are
that way
some
you
B2B.
can kind of mirror image some of the flow, right?
Right, absolutely. And that's what we're looking, because it's, you know, either way, it's going to be interacted with by the consumer, because, you know, whether we sell through the doctor or directly to the consumer, it's going to be the consumer, the patient, that's going to be doing the data entry and dealing with this stuff.
Right.
Because the whole idea is the providers don't have the bandwidth to handle this. And, you know, at the end of the day too, you get kind of a motivated consumer when you're talking about, you know, $10,000 of medical debt or something like that. You kind of get a more motivated consumer than the
Right.
typical widget. So
the
we have the luxury.
ticket.
Yeah, so we're lucky to have some motivated customers here. So working out those flows and things like that.
Okay.
And Mo, he says in his personal injury practice, he sees a lot of this where health insurance fails to pay because the ICD and CPT codes aren't correct. And he knows this occurs a lot in all types of medical treatment.
Yep.
Do you have any, are you attacking that, or are you saying we're appealing just flat out appeal? Or
no, I mean, the end idea is all of everything like that to bring it in. You know, everything that can go wrong, we want to deal with. And that's the beauty of artificial intelligence, is we can get really sophisticated pretty quickly with a lot of these issues. You know, like I said, we're starting with this minutia of, you know, ambulance bills and emergency room bills, because there's initially a high success rate on those appeals because of the legislative protections around emergency healthcare expenses. So we're starting there because it's streamlined, it's focused, and it's a decent probability of success. But the sky's the limit, you know, and there's so much opportunity because there's so much failure right now. So that's what we're looking at. Everything like that is absolutely what we're looking at. You know, like I mentioned, you know, we're in such a pre-seed stage. So it's, you know, this is in the past month is when it's kind of turned from a fun project into, all right, this is what's going to happen. This is what we're going with. So that's over the past 4 weeks has kind of made that shift in attention.
And it sounds like it's also shifted your attention from the July bar to the February bar.
Absolutely. You know, I never kind of planned on being a fully practicing attorney from law school. So, you know, I do want to take the bar just as kind of a capstone. You know, bring me back to my CPA days, almost 10 years ago then, I guess. But yeah, so the idea is right now to run with this momentum that we've got and get it done.
Excellent. Ivan, any last questions, or any last questions from our viewers over in Facebook? Ivan, any questions?
No, I mean, this is good. I mean, you're definitely busy working on this and trying to finish up law school. I commend you for that. There aren't too many people out there that are doing that. But I mean, very early, as you're saying, in the process. So, I mean, as things grow and as things develop, feel free to reach out to us, see if we can help out in any way.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you guys giving us the exposure at this stage. it's, I wish I wish we had more to share with you, but I appreciate getting connected at this stage. We're really excited. We've had a really good reception from patients and from doctors. The only people that haven't been very happy to hear about the idea are insurance executives. So take from that what you will.
No, we like having, this is an early stage startup, legal technology show. So, but we also like to give some, we know how hard it is to do law school. We've both done it and work on a project. I work full time and Ivan was married, I believe, at the time. And so working as well. Weren't you, Ivan?
Yeah. Part-time. I was doing National Guard, working part-time, law school. Yeah.
Married. Yeah. So we like to have on every once in a while a entrepreneurial law student, even though we expect that it's not going to be, fully conceptualized necessarily, although it seems like you've got a pretty solid concept. It seems like a lot's happened since you and I communicated, whatever that was, earlier this month.
Yep. Yeah, so we communicated, I think, right around the ABA Tech Show. That was when we were talking, which, some things like that are just fantastic. And it kind of, this has made me, I was toying around between going back into something like compliance and fintech versus starting something like this. And, there's so much opportunity in the legal world that's not really met. And I think that, when we talk about legal education or the alternative legal services market, it's just really exciting. And there's a lot of stuff to look at going forward around changing the landscape. You don't have to go pay some lawyer a few $100s an hour anymore. I think flat fee, fixed fee, technology is the trend.
Limited scope.
Margin. Yep. And so that puts the focus on margins, and that's where technology and things like AI come in. And I think that's the future.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting times, and it seems like we're starting to see a lot more crossover. I shouldn't say a lot more. I'm seeing some crossover now. Legal tech, fintech, that's always kind of had some crossover. Legal tech, insure tech seem to be having some more crossovers these days. So
yeah, that's where I live.
Yeah, that's where you're living. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, Brian, tell our guests and our replay viewers how to find you online. I will say the website should be up in a few days, Brian has told us, and that will be MyZappeals.com. That's MyZappeals.com.
Yep. So it's Brian with an I at MyZappeals.com. Email, you can find me on LinkedIn, Brian Mache, last name Mache. It's not how you would expect to spell it. But yeah, so MyZappeals.com, Brian at MyZappeals.com, BMACHE1 at Twitter. We're MyZappeals on Twitter as well. So, reach out to us anywhere, and we're happy to continue the conversation.
Excellent. And we're wishing you luck on this. Any last minute comments, Ivan, before I wrap us up? But you got to take off. You've only been doing this for 48 episodes. You got to take off the.
No, I think I said you covered it all.
Okay.
I just want to change it up a little bit. See if you can lip sync me.
No, I'm not there yet.
Or
Maybe at 100. Maybe at 100 episodes.
At 100 episodes.
Yeah. So Brian Mache, 3L, Vanderbilt Law, creator of MyZappeals.com. Look for that website. Should be up shortly. Thank you, Brian, for coming on.
Before your final exams or whatever you got to do.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, no pressure on that. Let us know how we can help. This has been great. Thanks again, Brian, for being on. And don't go away when we stop recording. And once again, this is Legal Tech Live episode 48.
Two more to go.
49 will not be next week because next week I'll be at Codex. 49, join us with Dorna Moini, and I'm going to have to check on that pronunciation. Of course, I haven't keep screwing those up. But of documate.org, used to be Help Self Legal. So join us for episode 49. That will be April 11th. Thank you very much for all those who watched and joined, and we will
Yeah,
talk
thanks,
to you
guys.
soon.
It's like, we got some interaction on Facebook.
Yeah.
Jumping in on Facebook as well.
And
all right.
hit that stop record, Ivan.
Oh, is it my turn to do that?
You are it.
I'm in control. End meeting now.
Don't end the whole thing.
No, not end the meeting. Stop recording.
Well, I guess I'll be cutting this out at the end.